On this slide, I have a tentative schedule on how we're going to roll out this new program. Starting with finishing that survey that I mentioned, we have to have a full inventory of all those properties. We have to complete our trash assessments, so we know which properties are on the list of having a trash issue that we need to address. We need to introduce this program to the property owners in the summertime after we finish with all our staff work. And then I will be coming back to you in September with these recommendations for ordinance changes, as well as any other further changes that we may require with the MRP 3.0 that's going to be adopted in July. And then if council approves, they can adopt in October of 2022, and then we'll roll out our first inspections to the property owners starting November of 2022. Our immediate next steps, though, is to finish that survey. Like I said, we still have some outstanding properties that need to be assessed, so we need to get our full inventory. We'll finish those trash assessments and the inspections, and then we'll have to integrate our assignments or our workload into our routine inspection program for our businesses. And then again, I'll be coming back in September and proposing those recommended ordinance changes in September. And with that, if you have any questions, I am here.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to ask if there's any public comment on this item. Anyone wishing to make a public comment? Attendees? Seeing no hands going up, I'm going to go back to our committee and go to Council Member Zarmeño.
Mayor, thank you, and Elisa, thank you also. Let's see. How often do these need to be emptied or cleared? And let's see if Southland has probably a system, right? Is Southland in charge of clearing it, or do we go in and clear it? And what happens to the garbage? Hopefully it's thrown in the correct place. Is that?
All very good questions. So the devices, we actually have a lot of these small devices. So we do have experience with maintaining them. On average, they're cleaned about twice a year, depending on how much debris they capture. Also, if they're adjacent to trees, they may get a lot of leaf litter inside them. So on average, about twice a year, maybe more. And also depends on how many storm events we have too. If they're on private land, we will not be maintaining them. It will be the responsibility of the private landowner to not only install them, but clean them and maintain them in perpetuity, because they do need to be, just like the city's right of way, they do need to be maintained. Otherwise, they'll just clog up and then they'll cause flooding issues. Was there a third part? I'm sorry.
I'm just, do we have a system to ensure that folks from Southland get rid of the trash correctly? Not
Where
just,
do they?
yeah.
Right. Well, you know, it's the debris that's usually collected in these devices is usually a kind of a soupy mess. So it's difficult to pick out if you wanted to perhaps sort it with recyclables. It's not impossible, but it tends to be really difficult to do everything. So what typically happens is it does gets thrown in the general trash. So if they can sort it, great. If they can't, then just the most responsible way is just to make sure it gets thrown in the garbage.
All right, as I go around the city doing a little bit of cleanup here and there, I run into storm drains that are full of trash about to go in it. So of course I pick it up, etc. And a few years ago, Boy Scouts went around and they put in, please don't dump oil down the storm drain. Do we have we thought about a possible program where we could go around and put up signs that say, don't put trash down the storm drain? Is that something that maybe we can work into our planning and to our projects?
Absolutely, absolutely. Matter of fact, part of the MRP's requirements is to have those labels
Okay,
adjacent to the storm drains. So we are educating the public that not to dump not only trash, but other pollutants down the storm
Right.
drain. We can certainly ramp up that more. And I know the streets are very, streets and maintenance department is very good about routinely going to the inlets, cleaning them ourselves. And then if those placards or the longer sprayed messages on the side of the storm drain
The
is,
stencils.
yeah, the stencils, perhaps they're cracked or they're broken off, to replace them as soon as possible. And any new development that we have, they're required to label their private drains so that the public is aware that they can't dump anything down storm drain. So there's always room to improve that and expand that, always. And I was actually thinking about maybe an extra label next to the storm drain, that there's a device there that is actually filtering the trash out. And maybe that's another message we can give to the public. And so we can definitely work on that.
all right. So that's something that's gonna be worked on. Thank you very much. I think we all can appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we want to tell the public that we're filtering trash? I mean, they shouldn't be throwing it on the ground anyway, even if
Exactly.
we are filtering
right,
it, right?
Agreed.
Okay, Councilmember Marquez, did you have any questions or anything?
I do, Mayor. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Thank you for the presentation. It was very thorough and concise. And I just had a couple questions to ask for clarification. I understand the definition that you provided for the private properties that are still being surveyed, but is there also a requirement that they have to be at least 10,000 square feet in size?
Yes, they have to be
Okay.
at least 10,000. If they're under that, I do not have to survey them.
Okay, and that's just the building. That wouldn't include their parking lot. Is that correct? Or does that include?
It actually excludes the building. It includes any imperviousness around the building. So if that exceeds 10,000 square feet, then I have to survey them.
Got it. Okay. And I seen the example of the two catch devices that you showed us. I know that there's multiple options, but I know in the past I've brought up just concerns with the mosquito district. Just wanted to make sure that the devices are vented and that they're not holding standing water, just to make sure we don't have another issue with
Absolutely.
mosquitoes. Okay.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. The approved list, and this gets, I believe the last update was about 6 months ago. The water board posted on their website. The devices that are approved for full trash capture also have to be vetted through the mosquito and vector control. So they have to have the opening that allows for the quick release of the biscuits or the pellets that they put down in for mosquito control.
Okay, great. And then this sounds like a lot of staff work. So is it realistic to complete the survey in the spring, or can you just provide us with an update on that front?
As long as COVID doesn't slow us down, we are actually doing very well with progressing it. We've accomplished the majority of the map. We have some sectors on the very bottom of Hayward. So I have full confidence that we will get the survey done by the summer. And then the trash assessments, they're supposed to be spread out a bit so we can see trash in relation to time. So I plan to get that done the latest midsummer. So we are ready to go as far as our full inventory that's going to be in our inspection list. It does sound a lot, and I'm not going to downplay it any, but we are on track. We are on track to get that done.
Okay, congratulations. That's good to hear. And then the 2025, the phased approach, is that just normal, or is it because of COVID that they're allowing a little bit more time?
It's partially because of COVID, and this is the across the board, many of the provisions on the MRP of priority for the water board have been extended. But there's some other complications that have happened just because of funding issues and staffing issues. And you're right, there is definitely a COVID factor in there that some of the things just weren't able to be completed on time. And so trash is one of them. And so I do appreciate having a bit more time, a couple more years to get that done by 2025. So if all goes well, we'll have the adoption in July, and we'll be just fine. We'll be on track.
Okay. And then just with reading this report, I understand the purpose of it, but I can't help but to think about all the properties we all drive by every day that are just negligent and have their trash cans overflowing on private property. And then that creates litter and just has this domino effect. So it's not really pertinent to this committee, but I'm just wondering if staff can make a note, and I will definitely follow up with the city manager. But I'm just wondering if we could, because I know the staff report reference the ordinance that it's, the property owner's responsibility to keep the area clean and free of debris. But maybe we should give that gentle reminder through the renewal of business license or some way to inform them, because obviously if we didn't have that issue, then obviously we wouldn't have it go off into the storm drain if it was mitigated from the beginning. And I know that's not the purview of this ordinance, but I just think it's something as a city we need to get a better handle on, because it just seems to actually be getting worse than rather than improving. So I just wanted to make that comment as well. Thank you. Those are all my questions for now, Mayor.
Thank you. Good suggestions. Although just getting people to do the right thing, getting people to behave and understand the importance of it, whatever we can do. I just, obviously this is generating costs. I'm glad to hear we're on target and you have time, and it doesn't sound like it's too much of a burden on staffing resources right now. And the report mentions that these devices can, be costly for the businesses. So I'm just wondering, are there any state or regional funds to help us achieve this?
For this particular one, since it is related to private property, if there's any opportunity for them to reach out and get funding, I can help with just pointing them in the right direction. Because the devices have to go on private property, I am somewhat limited. I can't receive funds or help them other than guiding them and providing direction and information to actually get the devices on the properties, if that's the proper route for each one. As you know, on the municipal side of things, we have been very aggressive to get funding to supply funds for our own devices that we have to put in on a large and a small scale. So I'm hoping that, with our experience, we can at least guide them in the ways that, this is how we've been maintaining trash reduction. Please learn from our experience.
And as far as it looks like from the map that you showed, Southland Mall is the biggest property impacted.
It's one of the biggest, yes. It's a very large parking lot.
Have you been out there, and are they on their way to, doing things to comply with this?
We have engaged with them on different reasons, and I haven't specifically asked them for trash reduction on devices yet, but they will be one of the first to go to, because of their land is so large. And we need to get that under control, because it's getting to our goal of 100% really relies on these private property owners to control the trash themselves. So we will see. The mall is somewhat difficult just because we have to get a hold of the owners. They're not always accessible, so we will do our very best to get them on board.
All right. Well, thank you for the report. If there are no other questions or comments, and I'm not seeing any hands raised, we can move on. But thank you for the report and good luck. And we'll look forward to hearing back periodically on how this is going, right?
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. So we will now move on to item number 3, which is regarding solid waste. And recycling, the solid waste and recycling franchise agreement with Waste Management. We're going to get an update on the negotiations and also being asked to, I guess, approve extending the franchise agreement for another, or recommend to council that the franchise agreement is extended for another 12 months until March 1st, 2023. And that the exclusive negotiating period is extended to June 30th, 2022. So Mr. Ameri, are you going to start on this one too? Or you're on mute. Are you going to go to Mr. Pearson first? Or
Absolutely. I was going to
Okay.
turn it over to Mr. Pearson.
Okay,
Eric?
Eric, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna let Jeff take this. He's gonna
Okay, I gotta go and write
give
this.
the presentation for us. Yeah,
So,
thank you.
I'll share my screen here. Hopefully it goes smoothly. Okay, does that look correct to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, great. Okay, yeah, I'm Jeff Crump. I'm the solid waste manager, and I'm going to provide an update on the negotiations that the city and Waste Management have been undertaking to create a new franchise agreement to supply Hayward with solid waste, recycling, and organic services. Now, Waste Management and their subcontractor TriSet have been providing these services to Hayward for decades, and the current contract is set to expire in March of 2022, just a couple months away. And the contract has the option to be extended by 3 12-month periods. So it could be extended all the way to March of 2025. And while negotiations have been productive, they've been moving at a pace that's a little slower than we anticipated. This slide shows the negotiations background. We really started negotiating in October of 2020, and we've had a few extensions of the negotiating period. And I have underlined that the latest one expired in December of 2021. And although we've made good progress, even if we were able to get all the outstanding issues agreed upon tomorrow, we still wouldn't be completed with negotiations before the current franchise agreement expires in March. And that's partially because the public notification requirements and approval hearing requirements would take about 4 months, which would put us past March. So what we're recommending is that we extend the negotiation period until June 30th of 2022 and extend the current contract for a year till March of 2023. This slide shows some of the elements that we've tentatively agreed upon. And one big thing that's not on this slide is the term of the agreement. We've tentatively agreed with Waste Management for a 10-year term. This slide covers SB 1383 requirements, and SB 1383 is a extensive new recycling law which just took effect in January, and probably the most significant recycling law passed in the last 30 years. And one of the elements of this new law is that all the carts throughout the state have to be standardized colors, with recycling being blue, trash being either gray or black, and organics being green. And you can see from this picture here that Hayward's carts, the only one that currently is in compliance is the green one. So we need to replace all the recycling carts and the trash carts. And Waste Management has agreed to do this, and they'll spread the cost over the 10-year term of the contract. There's extensive annual reporting requirements, and if Waste Management has agreed to help us collect data and report to CalRecycle, there's requirements for monitoring contamination, and the city and Waste Management have agreed to use cameras on trucks to view the material as it's dumped into the truck to monitor contamination. Education and outreach, there's annual requirements for that, and Waste Management has agreed to help with that. And then there's some requirements for procuring organic material. And what this really means is compost and mulch. And we've agreed with Waste Management to double the amount of material that we give away at our compost giveaways from 5,000 bags to 10,000 bags, and to triple the amount of material that the Hayward's Landscape Division receives from Waste Management in mulch and compost to 1,500 cubic yards. And unfortunately, those amounts of compost and mulch are a far cry from what the city's required to procure by the state. So we're still working out a means to figure out how to acquire and use this large amount of compost that SB 1380 or mulch that 1383 is requiring. Some other elements tentatively agreed upon are overage charges. The city and waste management have agreed that customers who have severely overflowing bins or carts where the lid is a jar by 12 inches or more and are habitual offenders can receive a fine. Public litter cans, we're going to increase the number of public litter cans throughout the city by 100 at 25 per year for the first 4 years of the contract. And waste management has agreed to have more severe liquidated damages for not servicing the cans in a timely manner. Also with illegal dumping, we've agreed to increase the amount of collections that waste management will do from 6 times a week to 12 times a week. A few other elements that we've agreed upon tentatively are electric vehicles. Waste management's agreed to take a hard look at having the route trucks be electric if the technology and the economic feasibility of the technology advance through the course of the contract. Waste management has agreed to have a couple of supervisor pickups be electric, as well as a flatbed, and TriSet has agreed to have an electric pickup serve Hayward. With public education and outreach, waste management has agreed to continue like they do with the current contract, have a dedicated outreach person for Hayward. Now, items that we're still discussing include the Main Street office. This office has been closed essentially through the whole pandemic, and we're deciding if the cost savings that the city might receive from not having the office open would justify closing it. We haven't reached agreement on that yet. There's rate compression. This is where you have the difference between the various size carts, the difference in the cost to the customer be closer, so that if someone needs a larger cart, the cost isn't going to stop them from doing it. And the issue with that is you don't want to have the lowest cost cart increase by price so much that it affects the low income members of our community. With diversion, the current contract had very ambitious diversion targets, which were not met. So we need to find a new diversion target that's reachable yet still challenging. With biosolids management, SB 1383 and a couple of other laws are going to prevent us from our current method of operating, which is to send the biosolids to landfill where they use it as something called alternative daily cover. So we're discussing different ways to manage our biosolids in the future. And then the overall cost. We haven't come to an agreement on what the overall cost will be for the new contract. This slide here shows a basic timeline of negotiations. And if you look at the top section, with the negotiated agreement successful, and there's some blue dates I put in there, that's showing that extending the negotiation period to June 30th of 2022, we should have time enough to have the new contract ready by July of 2022. And if for some reason negotiations are not successful, we still have time to go for an RFP if we need to. So what we are recommending to the committee is that the committee recommend to council that we extend the negotiation period until June 30th of 2022, and the council extend the current franchise agreement for one of those 12-month periods until March 1st of 2023. And then the next steps would be, upon direction from the committee, staff will prepare a report for the January 18th council meeting. And with that, I can open it up for questions.
Okay, let me first ask if there are any public attendees who would like to speak. But I'm not seeing that there are any hands raised on any of the attendees. So we'll close that and go to Councilmember Zermeño has his hand up.
Unless colleague Marquez wants to go first, please, Elisa.
She does have her hand up, but you had yours up first. But Councilmember Marquez, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you,
Okay.
Councilmember Manuel. Thank you for the update. I support the extension and really appreciate the status update. There's been movement on multiple fronts and clearly understand the areas that have not been agreed upon, but I think significant progress has been made. My one question is, I know the request is for up to a year, but if we come to an agreement within 3 to 6 months, there's nothing that prevents us from coming back to council sooner. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Zermeño.
Thank you, Mayor Jeff. Thank you very much. I do support both recommendations. Those are fine. There's been movement, and it's a lot of good positives on it. Let's see. You mentioned nothing about bus shelters. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That I'm getting my meetings mixed up. I'm thinking we need to have the garbage cans and the bus shelters emptied, but and
Yeah.
as we know, as you may know, AC Transit will probably stop doing the bus shelters with the company that contract's going to be out. So that means that in the future, the city of Hayward is going to have to clean those or empty those garbage cans in the bus shelters unless we can work out a system with waste management. Has this been discussed at all?
Absolutely, Council Members Romano, I wanted to mention that you were right, because we have had a lot of problems with Clear Channel, that it has the contract for the bus shelter management, and also those small containers of garbage that are attached sometimes to the bus shelters.
Right.
They are asking for a lot more money now from AC Transit to take care of those shelters. And AC Transit has reached out to member cities asking whether or not we want to either contribute, some money for maintenance or take over the maintenance of those shelters. And as we look into these subjects, we are going to bring them before the appropriate committee to get direction, and then eventually from council as to what we need to do for better service.
But nothing is being discussed with waste management about clearing those waste baskets.
No, what we are doing is placing some of the public containers near bus shelters so that we are not relying on those little, attached containers that are not even, managed properly. Those attached containers have a liner inside them. And if those liners are removed and the container is full of garbage, there's no way to service them except by, hand manually removing the garbage. And they are very small anyway.
Okay, all right. As long as we take care of them. Does HUSD have a contract with Republic and that will waste management?
Correct. They have a different contract.
Okay, all right. I'm just thinking, if the whole city of Hayward came in with waste management, it would help the bottom line as far as what we would have to pay for.
We have been pursuing that for a number of years. We haven't been successful so far. Okay. But it would be ideal for public education and everything else if we had a combined contract.
Right. Okay, so next time we meet with HUSD, let's talk about it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we should put that on. We can try to put that on an agenda for the HLAC meeting.
Right. It would save cost for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to this issue because I think we talked a lot about it. Well, first of all, on the carts, it was in the staff report that all the carts won't necessarily be replaced and that waste management will be repainting some of them to make them the right color, right?
Some of the bins, they may do that, yeah.
Okay, because we were concerned about waste in terms of the carts that are no longer, appropriate. And I think that's a legitimate concern. And I did see in the staff report that there may be some painting done so that we can continue using the current carts until they're, until they're worn out.
Yes, so the green carts are going to remain because they already comply. The garbage carts and the recycling carts are going to be replaced. And as Jeff mentioned, the bins are going to be painted the proper color. And those carts, some of those carts are many years old now.
Yeah,
and
yeah, for the ones that are, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not saying you don't ever throw anything away, but we don't want to create more waste just because the part's the wrong color.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So on the compost thing, I guess I'm a little confused about I thought we needed to get rid of a certain amount of compost, not procure it ourselves. And I mean, you're saying we're gonna actually use more ourselves, which is good, but we
Jeff.
can't use all of what we're being told we need to absorb. I saw, I didn't cut it out and I can't remember where I saw, but I know I saw an article in the last month or two about really the need for compost on farms, that it is becoming a commodity that is needed. And so I'm just wondering if that's going to continue to be a problem, or if we can't, work something out for, I mean, are we responsible for figuring out where that compost is going to go?
We need to procure a certain amount. We don't have to use it all. So we could sponsor a farm to use some of the compost that Hayward was responsible for acquiring. Ideally, we'd use it in Hayward instead of just having Hayward sponsor some far off part of the state to grow, almonds or something. But the amount that the state is requiring us to procure, I don't see how Hayward can use it all internally. And Stop Waste is currently asking Cal Recycle to re-look at the requirement. So we might hear something in a few months that it might be adjusted. Cross our fingers, but we'll see.
That would be good, because it seems like there would be uses for it from, that we could have a deal with the, with the farmers in the state that, but that would be something that would be better handled on a larger scale, I would think. So, okay, well, that is good news. I think they really need to look at that. On the Main Street office, I do really think you need to look at can we, for that, what will they knock off if they don't reopen that office? Then that should be a savings to us. And where are the issues there? And I know that when we had this discussion at council, there was support for trying to keep that office open, but I don't think council members would want to do it at the risk of having to increase our charges. I mean, if we can get some of this other stuff that we want in exchange for agreeing that they can close that office, which hasn't been operating during the pandemic anyway. And I haven't received a lot of complaints about it not operating. And I also wondered if there was a possibility of us having some kind of a liaison at City Hall who could convey issues, if that we at City Hall could convey issues back to Waste Management for people who wanted an in-person encounter. But anyway, just wanted to make that comment. You're saying that that's still sort of at issue as to.
Mayor, we are on the same page with you. The point that we are negotiating with Waste Management is, what is the value of that office? We have a certain value in mind for that office because there would be savings of the rent, the equipment, and 2 staff members that will have to be there for safety reasons. The amount that they have initially offered as a credit to the city, if that office is allowed to close, is a fraction of what we think it should be. So we are negotiating to see if we can get a fair number to bring to you.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, just talk a little more about the public. I mean, I know we'll be having hearings at the council and all when we get to an agreement. Is there any other attempt to engage the public right now and get comments on this issue other than our committee meetings and council meetings?
No, we haven't been engaging the public.
And is there a plan to do that other than, I would assume that at the time we get to rates, and I would assume, like always, there will be rate increases. There would have to be some kind of outreach, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there's, what is it? Prop 218 requires us. That's the one that takes a long time and will be pushing us past the March date.
Okay. So we'll be following that process.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's all. Elisa, did you have another question?
I do. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay, go
Mayor.
ahead.
Sorry, I forgot to ask earlier. Can you please provide us with an update on the bulky pickup status? I know currently we're allowed up to 2 a year, and then I believe there's a limited number of vouchers available. What's the status with that, with renewing the contract?
With the vouchers, those are going to stay the same as the current contract. So those will still be available, the free dump coupons for Davis Street. And with the bulky collection, that's staying the same, except we're adjusting what was basically a flaw in the system where larger multifamily complexes, if you went by the math of the per unit volume, they could have a bin there every week and basically use it as a supplement for their trash. So we're still discussing this, but the idea is to allow them to have, I think it's one a month, a roll-off bin per month, every month. And if they can't use it for a certain number of months, they can hold on to 3 uses, like bank them and still use those. That's the only change.
So the change is only with multifamily unit, not single family.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Marquez, I would just add that our challenge is to get our residents and businesses to use what is available to them. For instance, participation in bulky pickup is still below, well below where it could be. People are not using their twice a year opportunity to clean up and take advantage of the service. When it comes to those vouchers, the amount of vouchers that are being used is a fraction of what is available now to residents. So we need to make sure that we remind them that these services are available and please use them.
Okay, have we promoted that in the Stack newsletter? I know we have in the leaflet, but has that been promoted in the Stack newsletter as well?
Jeff, do you know that?
I don't think we have.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So
Okay,
we can do that.
Yes, and then I just have a one follow-up question to that. I understand that, never mind, this is going to get into the weeds. Never mind, I'll talk offline on this next question. But yes, it's something that I know I encourage all my neighbors to use it. And I can honestly say, as much as I push it, I don't see even half of them utilizing it. So definitely continue to spread that information. But I know we've got really strong numbers of email distribution, people receiving the newsletter. So hopefully that may encourage more people to utilize it. And I'm willing to brainstorm with my colleagues at a future date what else we can do. But I definitely think that it's unfortunate that that's underutilized because it's such a wonderful service and very, very convenient. So
Absolutely.
whatever we could do.
Maybe, yeah, thank you. And I think that expanding it to get some notice about it in the Stack might be a good idea too. If, look for something to hang it on, like maybe one of the hearings advertising that we're looking at this. We do want people to know that we're looking at this. Don't want to just meet the technical requirements, but in connection with that, maybe a really good Stack article about what people can do now and what we want to continue. So, all right, well, it sounds like progress is being made, which is good. And thank you for keeping us informed. And I too support the recommendations that we extend the agreements. And so you'll be bringing this to council then pretty soon, correct? So to do that, keep on working. Okay. All right. And it looks like we're just a couple of minutes past. Anyway, we're doing pretty well on time here according to the schedule. So let's move on to item number 4, which is a report on the new California recycling and reuse legislation.
And I quickly turn this over to Mr. Pearson to introduce the Climate Core Fellow.
Yeah, so Carolyn Wiseman is our Climate Core Fellow. She's with us for about 1 year, and this will be her first presentation to the committee and talking about some new recycling legislation. So Carolyn, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Eric. And let me share my screen. All right, is that showing up for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, like Eric said, my name is Carolyn Wiseman. I'm the Climate Corps Fellow for the City of Hayward, and I'm going to be presenting an informational report on 5 new recycling and reuse bills that were approved in October of last year by Governor Newsom. These bills address labeling requirements for recyclable and compostable products and packaging, the export of plastic waste, reusable glass bottles, and single-use food serviceware. And in the following slides, I'll cover each bill and how they relate specifically to the City of Hayward. So both California and Alameda County have a history of setting bold recycling and waste management goals. For example, in 2010, Stop Waste established a goal of diverting at least 75% of Alameda County's solid waste from landfills by 2020. And then in 2011, AB 341 became law and established the same goal, but on a statewide level. Ultimately, state and countywide diversion levels fell short of this 2020 goal, result of slow progress that was further exacerbated by the China National Sword policy. Alameda County now has a new goal, which they adopted in December of 2020, of reaching landfill obsolescence by 2045. Meanwhile, California is preparing for the implementation of SB 1383, which Jeff just talked about, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by reducing the amount of organics that are sent to landfills. New recycling and reuse laws, 5 of which I'll talk about today, were passed to help continue to move state recycling efforts forward. So currently in Hayward, about 73% of the solid waste that's produced is diverted from landfills. And this number is slightly higher than it's been in previous years, which may be a combination of the pandemic and the new system of tracking our waste. And Hayward's been able to divert waste from landfills through recycling ordinances and other efforts like banning styrofoam containers at restaurants and banning disposable plastic bags at retail stores. In January of 2012, Stop Waste enacted the Mandatory Recycling Ordinance, or the MRO. And then in response to SB 1383, Stop Waste adopted a countywide model ordinance, the Organics Reduction and Recycling Ordinance, or ORO, which Council adopted in November of 2021. And starting this month, SB 1383 regulations will be implemented in Alameda County under the ORO to divert organic material from landfills and help reduce food waste. So the first bill I'll talk about is SB 343, and this is the Truth in Labeling Bill. This prohibits the use of the chasing arrows symbol and other claims of recyclability on products and packaging that are not truly recyclable. What is and what is not considered recyclable is going to be defined by CalRecycle in a list of acceptable products and packaging that should be released by January 1st of 2024. Once this list is released, manufacturers are going to have 18 months to comply with this. And some of the outcomes of this law include reducing confusion about what is actually recyclable, and this is going to help Hayward residents sort their recyclable material more accurately and helping to reduce the contamination in the recycling system. Additionally, the labeling requirements for recyclable packaging should send a signal upstream to manufacturers to help support the recycling market. And finally, this should create greater consistency across different jurisdictions about which products and packaging are truly recyclable. Next is AB 1201. This is the Compostable Product Standards Bill. So increasing organic material recovery is a key step in diverting waste from landfills, but a major challenge with this has been distinguishing between compostable and non-compostable products that are visually identical. Some fiber products can contain harmful chemicals that contaminate the system, and they're very expensive to remove. Existing California law prohibits the sale of plastic products that are falsely labeled as compostable, biodegradable, or decomposable. AB 1201 expands this product labeling requirement to include all products, not just plastic products. And like SB 343, it directs CalRecycle to develop a list of acceptable products by January 1st of 2024. Reducing consumer confusion about what can be composted ultimately decreases the amount of contamination in processing facilities. It increases the quality of the composted soil product, and it helps reduce the disposal of organic waste in landfills, which is one of the requirements of SB 1383. There are still likely to be differences in what products are accepted in composting facilities across different jurisdictions. So some products that meet the statewide definition of compostable, such as a compostable plastic bag or bio bag, are discouraged from being used by Hayward residents because they don't break down quickly enough in waste management facility that composts residential organics. Next is AB 881. This is the plastic waste exports bill. California currently leads the nation in plastic waste exports, and in 2019, 14.4 million tons of plastic waste were shipped from ports in California to international markets. Manufacturers in the receiving countries often don't recycle all of this waste, and it ends up getting dumped illegally, burned, or landfilled. And regardless of where this plastic waste ends up, California would typically count this towards its recycling goals. So AB 881 addresses this by reclassifying the export of mixed plastic waste, which is the most commonly disposed material, and only allows truly recyclable source-separated plastic to be counted towards the state's recycling goals. In Hayward specifically, plastics are already handled in a manner that's consistent with AB 881. And Waste Management and TriSed don't send any mixed plastic waste to international destinations, so this bill should not have any impact on the city's current diversion rates. Next is AB 962, the Returnable Beverage Bottles Bill. Since the implementation of California's Bottle Bill program, the state's beverage bottle recycling rate has increased from about 52% in 1988 to about 68% in 2020. This has been a relatively slow process, and there's still a large quantity of beverage containers that are disposed of every year. As a result, AB 962 authorizes reusable glass bottles to circulate through California's Bottle Bill program. And as of January of 2024, processors are allowed to wash the reusable glass beverage containers or send them to an approved processor instead of them being crushed and then remade into new products. The law ensures that recycling centers and processors are paid the same amount as they would normally receive for recycling single-use glass bottles. And therefore, AB 962 should help promote a more environmentally and economically sustainable business model. And lastly is AB 1276. This is the single-use food serviceware bill. And existing California law prohibits restaurants from providing single-use plastic straws unless they're requested by customers. Now, AB 1276 expands the law to include all single-use foodware accessories and standard condiments, and this applies to on-site dining, third-party delivery platforms, as well as takeout. And AB 1276 is intended to keep single-use foodware out of landfills, but it can also save restaurants money that they typically spend on the disposable foodware. This law will become enforceable as of June 1st of this year, and it should be noted that this bill aligns with a project in the strategic roadmap and eliminates the need to create a local ordinance surrounding single-use food serviceware. So staff will continue working with Stop Waste and Waste Management to ensure that Hayward is in compliance with these new state laws and to coordinate any public outreach efforts. Thank you, and we can take questions at this point.
Thank you. That was very, I mean, the staff report and the presentation were very well done and comprehensible, and some of this is real good news. I'll go once again. Councilmember Zermeño has his hand up first. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm going to open public comment on this. But again, I do not see that any attendees have their hands up. If they're an attendee and you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Not seeing any, we'll go back to the committee and Councilmember Zermeño. You're muted, Councilmember Zermeño.
Yes, I am. I want to make sure that you don't hear any background noises like our dog. But anyway, Carolyn, very good first job. Congratulations. Thank you, city staff, for making sure that everything works out well. One question is, how do we feel about ORRA? Do you think that it's going to work out? Do you think that we will be successful in Hayward? Any thought from Eric or Alex or Caroline? Orro?
Yeah, I think we're working closely with Stop Waste, and Stop Waste is also partnering with the County Health Department to help us implement the ordinance. So I think everything seems to be on track for moving ahead with implementing the ordinance.
Okay, all right. Three things that I loved about the report. Let's see. Landfill obsolescence by 2045, one. Number two, AB 881, excellent. Number three, truth in labeling, excellent. Let's do this. And one, I guess, a request of sorts, but it's coming in from left field. So it'd be nice to see milk bottles come back. So can we start working on some kind of an education, some kind of a program encouraging people to buy soda pop on glass bottles or aluminum cans, not on plastic bottles? Is that something that we can get into? Is that something, does that appeal to anybody besides me? You know, I buy Dr. Pepper, I'm a Dr. Pepper man, and I don't buy it in plastic. I buy it only on cans, because can is recyclable, whereas plastic is a hard time. Anybody interested in this? Am I the only one? I guess I am.
You know, I'm not sure about promotion. I do hope that the the law that's allowing the reuse of the bottles to the recycling centers can get the same compensation that they do for taking bottles that we crushed. Hopefully that'll help. I think that maybe after that law actually takes effect in a few years, then we can see where we are and how well it's utilized.
Most of the Mexican Coca-Cola is in a bottle, in a glass bottle. You cannot find Mexican Coke in a plastic. I actually was able to find the 1952 glass bottle of a Dr. Pepper, and Dr. Pepper tastes a lot better in a glass bottle than it does in a plastic, believe me. And then Jarritos, which is certainly very, very popular, only comes in a glass bottle. So okay, maybe I'll start working on my own. Carolina, thank you. Caroline, thank you very much again.
Thank you. Yeah, I would suggest, it is, people do know this. I think people do know, and you see more and more use of water bottle, people having their own water bottles that they refill. We're seeing more water refill stations in new construction. And so I think we're moving in that direction, but it's the manufacturers. And if people didn't buy them, you're right. If people didn't buy it, they wouldn't, the manufacturers would look for, would start providing what people do buy. But, it's a big ask that you're making, and I'm not sure how successful it would be. But Councilmember Marquez, did you have anything?
Just to thank Carolyn for her great presentation. Did a really good job. I'm really excited to see a lot of these initiatives come online. I know we've talked a lot about these issues on this committee, but glad to see that it's going to be implemented statewide. So hopefully that'll make a difference with our environment, with minimizing pollution and litter. So I'm excited to see this come online, and just encourage us again to highly promote this information in the leaflet, as well as the stack, the issues that we want to highlight. And to council members Armenio's point, maybe we could start outreach with the Pepsi plant in Hayward and talk to them about your idea and kind of go from there. I think it's definitely something I would push on a personal level. I just don't think on a policy level we could handle that right now, but do support your effort in wanting to pursue that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a good idea. I mean, we have a Pepsi plant here, but also the continuing education, again, just encouraging people. Most people really do want to do the right thing. So if you just put that thought in their minds. Well, first of all, recently, the person who does both the cooking and the shopping in my house, which isn't me, started bringing home these very things that you have a picture of in your slides. And I was delighted, because I am the person in the house that does the cleanup. And, that involves a lot of the recycling. And I loved these bags because they're great. I thought they were great to put all those food scraps in and be a little neater about what you put in your green bin. And then I received this, and this is another thing that we could work with Waste Management on. They send out their own publication, right? So I was reading their publication and learned, to my dismay, that these bags are not acceptable. Let's see, where was that? And it's in here somewhere, where specifically yes, do not place any type of plastic in your organics cart, even plastic labeled compostable or biodegradable. These do not decompose in the standard composting process, resulting in contamination. So Waste Management doesn't want them. And I'm sorry, Councilmember Zermania, we'll talk about this offline, but they did not come from a Hayward. I don't know whether they have them in the Hayward stores, but I'm pretty sure these came from a very nearby adjacent community at a store where the shopper in my house does buy some things. And so I mean, does the county accept? I mean, this is terrible because it says right here, certified compostable, biodegradable. It's a bio bag, and yet we don't want them in our. And I think that's really alarming because I don't know how many people are doing this, and it would be nice if they were able to be truly, if they were compostable. Why can't we use them in our compost? They're convenient, but I'll just put that out there as to a little frustration there about that issue.
What happens is those perform and compost properly in the lab setting, which is like 180 days that it takes. And typically here in California, the commercial composters are finishing their compost in more like 90 days. And so it just doesn't give the bag the opportunity to perform like it was designed to. And then it ends up getting screened out and getting part of the residue.
So are these bags accepted by other waste haulers?
Some jurisdictions do accept them if they take longer to do their compost, or if they could identify them and make a special windrow with them. But Waste Management has decided they just don't want to deal with it, and understandably so.
Well, just say that the state efforts to be more consistent and all of these things are very welcome, because we all know that we don't live in an isolated world in the city of Hayward, and that people do shop outside the city and bring home things like this and are understandably very confused. And that is a shame. And I think that's what the state is trying to get at here. So I do hope they're successful. You're muted, Alex. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Thank you for bringing up the issue. We are going to continue to have conversations with Waste Management. You're absolutely right that some jurisdictions actually encourage using these bags because it's neater, cleaner. You don't have to wash the container that much. Waste Management, because of their technology right now, they are discouraging the use of it. I'm sure that as time goes on, these items are going to be more acceptable, and the technology to make them more compostable in a shorter time is going to evolve. So there is hope that we can have a unified system throughout the Bay Area.
Well, thank you. And for now, I'll go back to my old method of just saving little tiny paper bags that I happen to get and using them, or newspaper, as we used to in the old days. I think
Right.
Wrap the garbage up in the newspaper before you put it in the can, just to make it cleaner. But okay, so with that, I think we can now move on to our to item number 5, which is proposed 2022 agenda planning calendar.
Sorry, just working on sharing my screen here. So in our next meeting will be March 14th. At that meeting, we've got 4 items currently scheduled. We'll talk about our efforts to update the climate action plan. And at that time, we'll also present an update on the greenhouse gas emissions inventory and forecast of emissions. Then we'll be discussing the REACH code that may be adopted by council this year in preparation for the new state building code that takes effect in January 2023. And then we have electric vehicle charging, and then the municipal regional stormwater permit. The draft permit has been issued by the water board, and cities have made comments. We expect to have responses to those comments back from the water board in time for the March meeting, and then we can discuss whether are the remaining issues that we need to be concerned about. Then in May, we'll talk about the Energy Resilient Public Facility Program. This is a partnership with East Bay Community Energy to install solar and batteries on our critical facilities. And then the CAP update again to talk about possible new strategies and policies for reducing emissions, as well as the environmental justice element that's being prepared in conjunction. So that's what we've got for the next 2 meetings.
Sounds like a good lineup. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Any other committee members comment? I was going to say that I'm just looking for the date now. I think it was last Monday actually, but I was invited to ride along with Congressman Swalwell. They met me downtown at City Hall, and we went down to down Mission Boulevard to I guess fairly new electric vehicle charging station at Electrify America that is down on Mission Boulevard near Sorensen. And that was, I hadn't known about that electric charging station being down there, and it's just so I think we have more of them than we realize, and more people are buying electric cars. So I think that'll be an interesting item. I'm looking forward to it. Any other comments? Seeing none from my fellow council members, we'll move on to committee member or staff announcements and referrals.
Eric, you want to start us off?
Sure, I've got a few announcements. Actually, I have three things I wanted to mention. One is for the climate action plan update. It's being developed in conjunction with the housing element and a couple other general plan elements. To kick off the public engagement part of the project, we have set up posters in the lobby or rotunda of City Hall, and also in the lobby of the main library. Those were just set up today. There's posters for each of the different topics of the general plan update. These posters will be out for a couple of weeks, and then we intend to set them up at different locations around town to increase exposure and introduce the project to the community and start the process of getting some comments. Next item is net energy metering. Some of you may have heard that the California Public Utilities Commission is considering some changes to the net metering program that existing solar customers a program that their solar customers are on. Mayor Halliday, you might remember we did sign on to a letter opposing the CPUC's proposed changes back in November. There could be a decision happening in the next few weeks. So on January 18th, we're going to bring to council a resolution seeking a formal position from the council and staff's recommending that we oppose the proposed decision, but support a more equitable policy framework. And then lastly, you may have seen the Stack Extra article that came out the last week of December, stating that Hayward has been recognized for our sustainability efforts. And we made the A list of CDP, which is an international organization formerly known as the Carbon Disclosure Project. Yeah, great accomplishment, and many thanks to Nicole Grecky on our staff for completing that lengthy questionnaire that they require each year. And that's all I have for now.
Yes, thank you. And go ahead.
I just wanted to add that, as you know, earlier last fall, the water supply picture for a lot of agencies was not that great. And those agencies started to ask first on a voluntary basis and then mandatory basis for water conservation and cutback. SFPUC also, joined them and asked for a 10% voluntary cutback. Now, the water supply picture has improved some. We've had a lot of snow in the Sierra, and I understand that we have more water in the snowpack right now. But that message kind of got around and people started saving water. Because the costs that SFPUC has are fixed costs and they don't change with the amount of water that people use, most of that costs are related to infrastructure that have payments and maintenance. They see that SFPUC is seeing that their revenues are reducing. So they have got in touch with the Water Supply and Conservation Agency and have said that they are looking into a water rate increase of between 13 to 25%. As you know, 2/3 of our cost running the water system is basically purchasing our water supply. So that means that if they go ahead with 13 to 25% rate increase, we would be looking at something between 9 to 15% plus rate increase. We are hoping that the water consumption picture is going to improve, water supply picture is going to improve, and the rate increase is not going to be as much, but that is what we are hearing now from our sole water supplier, SFPUC. And that's my announcement.
Thank you for that not so great news. Anyone else? I would say that one of the things about that call for cutback, and the Bay Area did it. The Bay Area more than did it, where Southern California is lagging behind. And yet I always think, and I hear this from other people, we are already among the lowest per capita users in the state. And so is it fair to ask everybody to have the same rate of cutback if you're already a water user? But in any event, we are doing it. And we'll just have to discuss that more, I suppose,
right. Absolutely.
As it evolves. All right. Well, thank you. Anything else for the good of the group from committee members or staff? If not, our next meeting is, again, our next meeting is March, right?
March 14th.
March 14th. So until then, thank you for a great staff reports and information this time. And thank you to the committee members for your input. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.